What if the Bible held business secrets more powerful than anything taught in an Ivy League MBA? Sounds crazy, right? But here's the truth. Some of the greatest business strategies ever written didn't come from Silicon Valley. They came from Solomon. The man known for wisdom wasn't just a king. He was a marketplace architect, and the principles he used to build one of the most prosperous kingdoms in history are still alive, hidden in plain sight. The problem? Most Christian entrepreneurs have never heard them. They're too busy chasing modern hacks while ignoring timeless truths. They separate faith from finance, Sunday from strategy, and wonder why they're stuck. But what if you stopped seeing your business as a hustle and started seeing it as a holy assignment? What if your money had a mission? This isn't a prosperity gospel pitch. It's a biblical wake-up call, because there's a blueprint, one designed by God, proven by Solomon, and available to any CEO who's bold enough to align with it. And once you see these principles, you'll never build the same way again. The request that changed everything. Solomon's secret choice. When Solomon became king, he had the opportunity to ask God for anything: riches, power, long life. But instead he asked for wisdom. That moment wasn't just holy, it was strategic. It was the foundation of a godly business mindset. He understood something that most modern CEOs miss. Money without wisdom is a curse disguised as a blessing. Wisdom, on the other hand, opens the door to sustainable and meaningful wealth. This principle hits hard even today. So many entrepreneurs are chasing cash flow while ignoring the flow of divine guidance. In a world obsessed with hacks and shortcuts, choosing wisdom is revolutionary. That means reading the Word more than the Wall Street Journal, and consulting Proverbs before profit margins. Want a place to start? Read Proverbs 3, where Solomon himself wrote, "Blessed is the one who finds wisdom. She is more profitable than silver." Solomon's choice didn't just please God, it unlocked favor, strategy, and abundance. Imagine if every Christian business leader made decisions through the lens of divine wisdom first. You'd see less burnout and more breakthrough. You'd stop starting businesses out of ego and start building enterprises out of calling. Wisdom isn't just knowledge, it's direction powered by revelation. So here's the challenge. What would change in your business if your prayers shifted from "make me successful" to "make me wise"? Because when wisdom comes first, money comes with purpose. And that opens the door to a mindset even greater than Solomon's crown. King mindset. Why Solomon thought like an investor, not just a spiritual leader. Solomon wasn't just wise, he was strategic. While most people only see him as a spiritual icon, the truth is, he operated like a visionary investor. He didn't build his kingdom randomly. He studied systems, diversified his assets, and positioned Israel as an economic power. From managing trade routes to importing luxury goods, Solomon saw money as a tool to build influence, not to serve ego. That's the mindset every Christian business needs to adopt today. A godly business doesn't grow by accident, it grows because someone behind it is thinking ahead. Solomon thought in terms of generations, not just quarters. He invested in relationships, infrastructure, and even human capital. The Bible says in 1 Kings 10 that silver was as common as stones in his kingdom. That didn't happen because he was lucky. It happened because he had strategy. If you're only praying, but not planning, you're missing half the formula. Think about your own business. Are you managing it like a king or babysitting it like a hobby? Solomon teaches us that godliness and greatness are not opposites. You can pursue financial growth without compromising spiritual integrity. Start by treating your business like an asset, not a side hustle. Get educated. Read financial books like The Psychology of Money or Biblical Principles for Financial Success. And if you're wondering how to connect all of this with your faith, remember, stewardship is worship. Solomon's mindset wasn't secular, it was sacred. He thought like an investor because he understood that managing money wisely was part of his divine calling. And that mindset, it leads directly into the next secret most Christian entrepreneurs miss: the power of delegation and scale. How Solomon built a purpose-driven empire. Solomon understood something most entrepreneurs learn the hard way. You can't grow what you refuse to release. One of the keys to his success was delegation. He appointed governors, managers, and overseers across Israel's 12 districts, each with clearly defined roles. He wasn't afraid to trust others with authority. And that's where many Christian business owners get stuck, trying to do everything themselves out of fear or pride. The Bible tells us in 1 Kings 4 that Solomon's officials were well organized, and each one supplied provisions for his household for a month. That's not just administration, that's operational excellence. Solomon scaled not by working harder, but by building systems. If your godly business is stuck, ask yourself, Are you managing tasks or building a team? Are you structuring for growth or just surviving the week? In today's terms, this might mean hiring a virtual assistant, automating parts of your customer service, or investing in training for your team. You don't need to be a billionaire to think like one. You just need to plan like Solomon. Delegation is not about doing less. It's about doing what matters most and letting others do the rest with excellence. True multiplication starts with release. God didn't give you a vision so you could stay buried in invoices and emails. He gave you a vision to lead. Solomon didn't grow an empire by hoarding control. He grew it by empowering others. And when that power is paired with wisdom, it sets the stage for one of his most underrated secrets: strategic alliances, what the Bible teaches about godly networking. Solomon didn't rise alone. He formed alliances. One of the most famous was with King Hiram of Tyre, who supplied cedar and craftsmen for the temple. This wasn't just a business deal. It was covenant-level networking. In a Christian business, your connections matter just as much as your calling. The right partnerships can accelerate your mission. The wrong ones can sabotage it. That's why Solomon chose his allies wisely. And you should too. The Bible says in Proverbs 13:20, "He who walks with the wise grows wise." Relationships are pipelines of either wisdom or destruction. In today's terms, that could mean finding a mentor, joining a mastermind, or simply being intentional with who you follow online. If you're constantly feeding on scarcity, fear, or hype, you'll build from that same spirit. A godly business is built on discernment as much as on decisions. Let's be clear, networking isn't about collecting contacts. It's about aligning with people who sharpen your spirit and stretch your strategy. Solomon knew that iron sharpens iron, but so does greed corrupt vision. Be prayerful about every business connection. Ask, does this partnership multiply the kingdom or just my profits? Because not every open door is from God. Strategic alliances are more than strategy. They're spiritual stewardship. And when you get that right, you open the way for investments that don't just serve your brand, they serve eternity. Solomon didn't just connect with kings, he partnered for purpose. And that purpose? It would become clearest in his boldest financial move yet. Wealth with roots. Why the temple was Solomon's greatest investment. When Solomon poured his resources into building the temple, he wasn't just building a monument, he was making a statement. While others might have built castles or palaces to showcase their wealth, Solomon invested in what had eternal value. That's a lesson every Christian business owner needs. Don't just build what looks impressive, build what lasts. The temple wasn't a liability, it was a legacy. According to 1 Kings 6, Solomon spared no expense. Cedar wood from Lebanon, gold overlays, precious stones. It took 7 years to complete, and it became the central place of worship and national identity. Now think about your own business. Are you building something that brings people closer to God, or just closer to your brand? A godly business multiplies purpose, not just profit. Practical takeaway: invest in kingdom-first priorities. That could look like supporting missions, mentoring young entrepreneurs, or even creating content that educates and uplifts. Your money isn't neutral, it's a weapon or a witness. Solomon teaches us that where your treasure goes, your testimony follows. And sometimes the most powerful financial move is to plant into God's soil instead of your own platform. Here's the irony. While the temple stood, Israel thrived. When it was neglected generations later, so was the nation. That's not just history. It's a principle. When your foundation is holy, your harvest is unstoppable. Solomon understood that before building influence, you must build an altar. And that principle? It's also the warning sign that most Christian CEOs ignore until it's too late. The cost of pride. When success starts to misalign the mission. Solomon's fall didn't happen overnight. It was slow, subtle, and spiritual. At some point, the man who once asked for wisdom began to trust his wealth more than his God. The Bible says in 1 Kings 11 that Solomon's heart was not fully devoted to the Lord. That's terrifying, because it means you can run a successful Christian business, look like you have it all together, and still be drifting, quietly, fatally. He began multiplying wives, horses, gold, everything God told kings not to do, Deuteronomy 17:16. 17. Why? Pride. Influence became identity. Prosperity became priority. And that's the trap every Christian entrepreneur must resist. When your business becomes about proving something instead of serving someone, you've already lost, even if the bank account says otherwise. Godly business isn't just about external fruit. It's about internal alignment. So how do you protect yourself? Build in accountability. Surround yourself with voices that can confront, not just clap. Fast and pray when making big decisions. Remember the why behind the work. Read The Ruthless Elimination of Hurry or Emotionally Healthy Leader, books that expose the idols that hide behind ambition. Don't confuse hustle with holiness. The tragedy of Solomon is that he had all the wisdom and still wandered. Let that humble you. You're never too anointed to fall and never too blessed to be broken. But there's hope. Because just as the fall came from drift, the return comes from realignment. And in that return, we rediscover the treasures Solomon once held, and many have forgotten. Forgotten wisdom, rediscovering the principles that unlock lasting prosperity. We live in a world drowning in information but starving for wisdom. Solomon's writings, especially Proverbs and Ecclesiastes, aren't just poetic ramblings. They're blueprints. He wasn't just talking about life. He was laying out a framework for how to lead, grow, and manage money under God's design. The sad part? Most entrepreneurs today would rather binge a podcast than sit with timeless biblical truth. Solomon taught that the fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom, Proverbs 9:10. That's not fear as in panic, it's reverence, awe, alignment. Imagine what would shift in your Christian business if every strategy started from that posture. Less guessing, more guidance, less striving, more surrender. Godly business is countercultural because it values integrity over speed and faith over formulas. It's time to bring back the practices Solomon embedded in his rule: daily reflection, generational thinking, intentional generosity, and disciplined learning. If you're serious about building lasting prosperity, don't just scroll, study. Books like Biblical Economics or God and Money help bridge the gap between ancient wisdom and modern finance. Better yet, start reading one chapter of Proverbs every day for a month. You'll be shocked at how your decisions begin to shift. What made Solomon powerful wasn't just what he built, it was what he understood. And you can tap into that same current, not by reinventing the wheel, but by returning to what already works. Because hidden in that old wisdom are new keys that unlock influence, innovation, and impact for any modern CEO who's brave enough to listen. From Solomon to CEO. Practical applications for today's Christian entrepreneur. The distance between Solomon's palace and your desk might seem vast, but the principles still translate. What does it look like to run a godly business in 2025? It starts with alignment. Spiritual first, strategic second. You don't need a throne or an empire. You need a vision rooted in the kingdom, not ego. Solomon didn't succeed because he followed trends. He followed truth, and so should you. Begin with a daily rhythm of prayer and planning. Map your goals, but surrender them. Track your numbers, but let God define success. Want to grow your Christian business? Build margin into your budget for generosity. Take one day a week for rest and protect it. Solomon taught that a slack hand causes poverty, Proverbs 10:4, but he also knew that anxious toil never honored the Lord, Psalm 127:2. That balance is where peace lives. Start investing in what outlives you. That could be launching a podcast that shares biblical financial wisdom, mentoring a younger entrepreneur, or even creating a scholarship fund for faith-based startups. Think legacy, not just income. Think mission, not just metrics. When your business becomes a vessel of kingdom impact, you stop striving and start multiplying. You don't need to be perfect to get started. Solomon wasn't. But you do need to be intentional. And the more you apply these ancient principles with modern boldness, the more you'll discover. Running a business. God's way isn't just better, it's unstoppable. Because when the CEO is led by the Spirit, even the marketplace begins to look like ministry. Now that you've seen what happens when ancient wisdom meets modern business, what are you going to do with it? Will this be just another inspiring video you forget tomorrow? Or the turning point where everything begins to change? Because here's the truth. You don't need more motivation. You need alignment. And when your Christian business aligns with kingdom principles, money begins to flow with purpose, and peace becomes your new normal. So ask yourself, what would shift if your business stopped being a burden and became your ministry? What kind of legacy could you create if you stopped building for success and started building for obedience? Will you really keep waiting for the perfect moment? Or will you take one small step today toward the vision God has already placed in your hands? Write in the comments, I am a kingdom CEO. And watch how this powerful declaration begins to shift the direction of your business and finances from this day forward. If this message spoke to you in any way, consider supporting our ministry through the link in the description. Your help keeps this mission alive. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications so you can keep learning the wisdom God has for your business and for your life.